Welcome everyone to this edition of ASCP's Our Experience with your host, Mr. Chad Wers and Tom Hansel. This episode is going to be a pillar of industry. You know, we sometimes have people that have helped us get where we're going. And I always, both of us, I think, always like to look back and look at the history and why is this the way it was and how did we end up here. And there's obviously some things that have happened specifically in long-term care pharmacy that has paved the way. And so we're so excited to have our next guest on. This is Mr. Bob Warnock. And I have a distinct history and privilege of getting to know Bob personally in my career. But Bob, welcome. We wanted to talk to you and get your background and your history. So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. Good to see you guys again. Been out of the business a little while, so good to see old friends.
For sure. So Bob, I know a lot about your history, but for our audience that maybe didn't get a chance to work so closely with you over the years, take us back to maybe your decision to why you picked pharmacy, how you ended up in long-term care, and I know you have a good, wonderful history, but just kind of give us the beginnings there.
Sure, Tom. Well, it's interesting how I wound up in pharmacy. When I was in high school, my mom was the first one to ever mention to me that why don't you think about pharmacy? She had had a good relationship with a local pharmacist in Waycross, Georgia, and respected him and thought a lot of him. And so she said, did you ever consider pharmacy? Well, quite honestly, when I was in high school, I was mostly an athlete, and pretty far down the list was my academics. So I wasn't really all that excited about going into something that was going to be very, very difficult to get into and a battle for me. And I took high school chemistry and quite frankly didn't like it very much. So as I thought about that, I thought that's about the worst choice I could possibly think of for going into. But then I got into college and I got into a college chemistry class and I enjoyed it. Seemed to make sense to me more than some of the other classes. So I kept pursuing chemistry and finally set a major as biochemistry major with the thought that I might try to go to dental school at some point. And then a good friend of mine that I was going to school with at the time kind of approached me one day and said, what are you going to do with biochemistry if you don't get in dental school? And I never thought about it, So he said, you should consider going to pharmacy school. He said, you can go into pharmacy and you can still go into dentistry if you want to later on, but you can go into pharmacy and it's pretty much the same requirements. And so I checked with the registrar's office and sure enough, it was about the same requirements. So I switched over to pharmacy and got into pharmacy school. As a matter of fact, I borrowed a tie from him to do my interview because I didn't even have a tie at school. So I borrowed a tie, did my interview. Back then, by the way, we had to wear ties to interviews. That was, that was, and I got into pharmacy school and I loved it. I absolutely loved it, fell in love with it. Actually, 2 quarters before I graduated from pharmacy school, I got accepted to dental school. But I just said, no, I'm staying with pharmacy. So got out of pharmacy, worked a couple of years in retail, enjoyed retail. But in retail, I was more of a store manager, less of a pharmacist. I didn't seem like I was using my pharmacy degree very much. So I switched over to Steve Hord, and another pillar of the industry.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Steve Hord convinced me one day. He said, I'm working with a group that's long-term care pharmacy. You should come see us and see what we do. And so I went over there and talked to him, talked to this group, and they hired me on, and kind of the rest is history. I became a long-term care pharmacist, worked with them for a while, met a gentleman named Hal Henderson in that process. Yep. And Hal and I started a long-term care pharmacy and built it up and owned it ourselves and that was probably the funnest time in my life, was being a consultant pharmacist, running the consultant division for, our own long-term care pharmacy group.
Yeah.
And we sold that group to Omnicare, and stayed with Omnicare for a little while. And then I switched over to the other side of the business and went to work for a company called Beverly Enterprises at the time, and then they became Golden Living. And I worked for them buying pharmacy services, if you will. So we didn't have a pharmacy. We bought our own bought pharmacy services from Pharmerica. And then left Golden Living. We split off. We started a new division, a pharmacy division, and then I left them and went with Pruitt. Met Tom at Pruitt, and worked for several years with a great group of people at Pruitt. They run a great organization over there, and I enjoyed that, running the pharmacy division. And Tom and I spent a lot of hours trying to figure out how to run that division and do it better. And then I retired.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it.
A lot of big iconic names in there.
I know, right?
Omnicare and Golden Living, and
all I keep thinking about, and we've had other pharmacists on that know the history of sort of long-term care pharmacy, but I just feel like at annual meeting we need a big board, and we need to put up like different eras and put like names like Beverly and some of these companies that otherwise we're going to lose it all to history. Like,
right.
Where did it all start? Who was early consolidating? Who got consolidated? Like, where did it all come from? Because I think it's so interesting to hear that aspect. And I don't know that anybody's written it down or done it in a way that people can look back on it and say, okay, well, this is how long-term care pharmacy originated, and this is how it matured, and here's where it is today. I'd love to see that. I would love to know that.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah. The Justice Department may have it written down somewhere.
Right. They might. We'll look at an OIG report and see if we can find it.
So Bob, I got a chance to obviously work with you and work with Pruitt for a long time, and in Georgia, they're certainly the post-acute leaders there. But what I've always been impressed by yourself personally is you've been an entrepreneur, you've been a trailblazer. You weren't afraid to open that pharmacy with Hal, and before Omnicare, or when Omnicare purchased them, I believe that was the largest long-term care pharmacy probably in the state at the time. And then, Golden Living certainly blazed some trails of their own in the starting a pharmacy. But tell me, where do you think that entrepreneur spirit came from, versus, maybe just sitting there and being a consultant or being a staff pharmacist? But I think in our industry, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that go out there and have done that during your generation.
Yeah, Tom, it's an interesting question. I will say, I was just maybe arrogant enough or hard-headed enough to, when I work for these companies, and you get with a company and then you kind of grow and grow and grow, and then the decisions a lot of times were moved out of your hands. Moved to somebody in some other city, and in Cincinnati or somewhere else. And I always believed, if you work with good people, and I was always blessed to do that, to work with good people my entire career. You work with good people. We knew what was the best for our area. We knew how to best take care of the people in our area, and others in corporate leadership sometimes didn't know that. And so it was just kind of a natural progression to, well, I can do this as well or better than they can, So can I find the money to do it? And, can I make any money when I do it? And again, I was blessed enough to work with really good people who, each time we made that decision, I'll never forget when I first went to work with Hal. We had one other guy in there who was a partner, and he actually had some money. Hal and I didn't have any money. He was a money guy, and his philosophy, what really sold me on going to work with them and building that business, was he said, our philosophy on business is we're all going to get together and we're all going to work like hell. And at the end of the day, if there's any money left over, we're going to split it up. That was our business plan.
Yeah.
So And it was just kind of that attitude of, and again, I have to admit, I was blessed to be in a business where if it failed, I could go get a job.
Yeah.
Right.
I could find another job. I could, I didn't have to worry about, if this fails, I'm destitute and I'm not gonna, ever gonna lose my house and things like that. I didn't have to worry about that. So I had a little bit of a safety net there. So.
That's a good point. And I think people don't always bring that up, but like pharmacy is a great degree. I mean, there's a lot of flex. You might not want to go back and maybe work at a retail pharmacy, but you can if you need to. And that is a good point. I love your origin story because your origin story is almost the same as mine. I was a biology major, and my counselor said, you could be a pharmacist in 5 years or a biology major in 4 years, and you can't do anything with that biology degree. But if you want to go to med school, you can still go as a pharmacist. And I'm like, that's what got me into it. So I love that story.
Well, and Chad, I want to mention one other thing here because I think it's important. When I got, associated with Hal and he was very supportive of me being part of ASCP. And he understood that the relationships that you develop, the people that you meet around the table, not necessarily the lecturers.
Right.
They're great. They're great too. But the people that you meet around the table and have dinner with and go and kick around ideas, I don't know how many hours I spent talking to guys, had done this, Herb Langsam and guys like that who you say, hey, Herb, how'd you get started? What'd you do? How'd you get that first facility to come on with you? And, and having those discussions with guys at ASCP and then bringing that back home and saying, hey, you know what? We can do this. Or these guys over here are doing this. Or they've got a special packaging system. We need to take a look at that packaging system. Right. Those are the really the things you can't get taught elsewhere that you have to get from being a part of a professional organization. So kudos to ASCP and you guys for doing that.
Yeah, we hear that a lot.
We hear that a lot. I mean, if you look at, this is before me, but long-standing value to the member is the networking. And they'll rank that number one on almost every survey we send out. And it's true. We're kind of a boutique association. We don't have 30,000 members. We've got 5,000 members that all get together and all talk to each other and share stories. And there are certainly some unique things about taking care of older adults and long-term care pharmacy and consulting pharmacy. But by and large, it's the people and their willingness, desire, and appetite for having relationships with each other and knowing each other.
And sharing information. Absolutely. And sharing competitive information. And even that they do compete in some way, they're tend to happy to, educate and to, create that community.
When I look at it as as an analogy to healthcare as a whole, you brought it up, like you knew how to take care of patients and nursing homes in Georgia really well. Even the corporate people lost sight of that. I mean, healthcare is local. It is the person and the person sitting across from them, whether that's a resident, whether that's a physician and a patient. And the whole healthcare system kind of loses track of that and wants to make it bigger and faster and profitable. But at the end of the day, it's local. And you got to have relationships and you got to know how to take care of people. We would call that servicing them well, but take care of people and the rest kind of works itself out.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I remember, Bob, one of the first meetings that we had together when you came on at Pruitt, you were very adamant to say, we don't service beds, we service people.
Yeah.
Our responsibility is the people. Yeah, they happen to be inside beds, and we use that lingo a lot, but it's about the person.
And you'd be surprised how often that conversation has to come up and be like, it came up. I was just telling a new employee about our COVID experience, and I said, initially they're going to send a pharmacist from CVS, Walgreens into a nursing home to give people vaccines, and there's nothing wrong with pharmacists from CVS and Walgreens, but they just felt like, well, that's the same as if people lined up at the CVS or Walgreens to get their vaccine, and we had to say, no, it's not. Like, these people are not the same people. you've got to take care of them. They're going to have to go to room. They're not going to stand up in line with a mask on 6 feet apart, waiting patiently.
Yeah.
Like, and you feel like you tell that story all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Bob, one of the names that I remember you telling us about back in the day was a man by the name of Buddy Carter, Congressman Carter.
Yeah.
And I believe that you went to school. I don't know if you shared an apartment or something with Buddy.
Yeah. Shared an apartment. I was doing my clinical internship, externship with down at Medical College of Georgia, and my wife was down there. She's a physical therapy student at the time, and one of her roommates was Amy Carter. Okay, so Amy and Holly were talking, and she says, well, my husband, her husband, Buddy, is coming to Augusta College for to take organic chemistry to get into pharmacy school. So he needs a roommate for the summer. I needed a roommate for the summer. So Buddy and I roomed together. Buddy became a pharmacist. Of course, I was out a few years ahead of him, but he became a pharmacist, and he was from Pooler, Georgia. And he was always interested in politics for whatever reason. And he called me up one day and he says, well, he says, I just won an election. I'm the mayor of Pooler, Georgia. And I laughed at him a little bit and I said, well, Buddy, I said, what does the mayor of Pooler, Georgia do? And he said, well, mostly I get calls from people early in the morning saying that somebody's rooster is too loud and that they need to you need to do something to quiet it down. So, but he blossomed that from the mayor of Pooler to a state representative in Georgia to now a U.S. representative, and still a good guy, great pharmacist. Hal and I actually got him into long-term care. We had some buildings down along the coast that it was a long trip for us to try to reach from our pharmacy in Conyers. It was just a long expensive delivery process. And so we talked to Buddy because I knew him from school. We talked to him, and he had pharmacies down there. And I said, Buddy, would you be willing to service these buildings? And he built a long-term care business. And I did the consulting for him actually down along the coast, and he built up, I don't know, a dozen, 15 facilities down there that he serviced for us, or as part of us, and he sold Omnicare, we sold Omnicare. So yeah, Buddy's a longtime favorite of mine, and probably my favorite congressman for sure.
There you go. He's elevated to a very powerful position now in this Congress. So it's.
But we can tell him that everything he learned about pharmacy, he learned from you.
He already knows
basically
that.
what I heard, right?
I'm gonna incorporate the rooster story into something that I say to Buddy Carter now.
He's dealing with a lot of roosters up at Capitol Hill on a daily basis. I'm sure he gets lots of phone calls from cackling roosters.
One other story you can get with him is, because our wives were both, such compassionate people, they found a little stray dog, and it was a little bitty thing, and they couldn't keep a dog in their place where they were staying. So they came to Buddy and I and said, we've got this little stray dog, we want you to keep it for a little while until we could find a home for it. So of course we said, okay. I wasn't in there much. I was over at the hospital most of the time. So we had him in there. But that little dog created chaos in that department, I'm telling you. And he was way more trouble than he was worth. But his name was Elmo.
Elmo. All right.
So if you ever talk to him, ask him how Elmo's doing.
I'll do that. I love that. Those stories are important to get attention from Congress people, for sure.
He'll know. He'll remember him, I guarantee you. So.
Yeah.
I feel like that summer you probably have some stories that could derail Buddy's career.
we won't bring those up.
Yeah, we're not bringing that stuff up. I don't.
Social media didn't exist back then, so it's all in the past, right?
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about Golden Living. I know, again, from just the history there that they started a pharmacy to kind of service their own own nursing centers, but they also got into some automation, hardware automation. That pharmacy actually still exists today.
Yep. Yeah, we, working with the company, and the goals of our company were the goals of what most long-term care companies are these days, or those days, which was we wanted to be able to take care of more and more acute patients. We wanted the Medicare patients, so we wanted to be able to, take just about any level of patient out of the facility and care for them. And what we found was the pharmacy provider that we were using, so one of the big national providers, they had some really good pharmacies, and they met our needs in a lot of our locations. But there were some of our locations where they just flat couldn't meet our needs. We just needed medicines there quicker than they were able to provide for us. And so we were able to, through some negotiating, we're able to come up and find, at that time, some companies that were doing remote automated dispensing. And that was a new concept at that point in time. There were a few people around. Nobody was really making any money at it. They had some machines, a couple of different types of machines that were, questionable reliability, I guess that's the way of saying it. But the concept was sensational, and we thought, if you can have the drugs in the building when the patient comes in, and we can go ahead and give them their medications, then that was a huge plus for us. That was a big selling point for us to get patients in the building, and it dramatically improved our ability to care for these patients, these post-acute patients. So we toyed with that for a little while, tried to find a provider who would do it with us so that we didn't have to open a pharmacy. Quite frankly, we didn't want to open a pharmacy. But we couldn't find anybody. Nobody was willing to make the investment in doing that on a large scale. And the small scale guys, quite frankly, if we'd have turned over 313 buildings, which we had, 313 buildings to a small provider, we'd have just bankrupted them. There was no way they could do it. So our owners came up with investments, and we put together what turned out to be Alexa RX. I guess they're still called that. I don't know. But we started building out pharmacies, and we built out pharmacies in several states and serviced our own buildings, and eventually serviced a few non-Golden Living buildings as well, using that technology. And that was an exciting time for me. I will say it was a time when I got a little bit away from pharmacy so much. I got a little bit further into technology, but like Tom has done now. but it was an exciting time. It was great to see that technology benefit our patients.
Right.
Our staff was thrilled with it. They were so happy to have the drugs there and not have to deal with concerns over the patients being sick and not having what they needed and whatnot. So our level of satisfaction went way up.
Awesome.
It was a interesting time for us, exciting time, and really a time when the industry kind of moved that direction, and in a direction I'm kind of proud of. I mean, I'm kind of
100%.
proud that those things to be a small part of kicking that can a little bit forward. So,
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, they say the first through the wall is the bloodiest. Yeah, you guys certainly blazed the trail there, and I'm sure it was difficult.
We seriously had some as our CEO said frequently, the law of large numbers are, if you have a pharmacy that has 2 machines, it doesn't go down very often. But if you got one's got 300 machines, and it's just about a daily thing if somebody's got an issue. So
Right.
a lot of headaches, but that's how you make it better. So.
Absolutely. Well, Bob, what about give me a ASCP meeting crazy story from the past.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah, I'll tell you one.
Okay.
Crazy, interesting story. So went to ASCP in Seattle.
Okay.
Okay, it was a Seattle meeting, and I roomed with a guy from over in Alabama. I won't mention his name because I'm going to disparage him later. So I roomed with this guy, and we were sharing rooms. We didn't have any money, so we both sharing a room, and we're at the meeting. We're at the I think it's the opening session, and back then they had a raffle, and this raffle you raffled off $10,000. You bought raffle tickets. At the end, the winner got $10,000.
Wow.
I don't know if you guys still do that.
Yeah, do that again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool.
You can't play,
by the
but
way,
everyone else can.
By the way, the ASCP Foundation kept $10,000.
Yeah, just split the pot.
They raffled off
that.
$20,000, but it was a $10,000. Yeah. So anyway, so I'm sitting there, and they're going on, and they said, okay, we're getting to the raffle part. Well, I had to use the bathroom, so I get up to leave, and the head of government affairs comes running over and grabs me and says, get back, sit down. And I said, what do you mean? She says, get over there and sit down. And I said, well, I got to use the bathroom. She said, no, not right now. Go sit down. And so I went and sat down. I won the raffle.
Oh,
So
wow.
I won the $10,000. Well,
wow.
I was thrilled. I was happy to win it. But, so I turn around and, it's going to sound self-serving, but I just donate it back. Most of that,
yeah.
What do I wasn't expecting to win. So, so I'm out $20. So anyway, I donate most of it back. Okay. I say, I'll give you guys, half of it, 2/3 of it. I don't even remember. But anyway, so long story short is, when we get ready to check out of the hotel, the guy that I was rooming with says, well, I'm not paying you for my half. And I said, why? And he said, well, you won all that money. You can pay
wow.
for the room. At least you can do is pay for the room. And I thought, well, I gave it all away. So I ended up getting stuck with a bill, and he really didn't pay it.
Oh my Lord!
He walked out and didn't pay his part. So
that'll teach you. Next time, you should keep all of the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I lost money on the raffle. I'm the only person I think ever to lose money on the raffle.
Money if you win.
Right. Oh wow, that's a good story.
Yeah.
I wonder what happened to that guy.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not gonna say.
No, that's okay. That's okay. He
I
probably,
never roomed
if
with
he
him
watches
again.
or listens, he'll know too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he will. But I will say I never roomed with him again. So.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Well, later you can forward this podcast directly to him if you want to.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Send him a link. Listen to this podcast. It was great.
Well, to all the people that know him and know me, I've told this story just so that to warn them that whatever you do, don't ever go anywhere with this guy and his
Right,
right.
You're paying if you do.
Yeah.
Playing to pay.
Wow.
So, Bob, you've had a wonderful career, and I know that Pruitt was the kind of the end cap there for you. And I was already at Pruitt when you got there, and I tell you, I thought I knew everything about long-term care pharmacy. Then I started working for a nursing home company, and a CEO that says, no, this is what we need as a nursing home, as your customers we need, and so that certainly shaped my career. But when you came in, it definitely you were certainly one of my career mentors. You certainly shaped my career as well. And I know you probably have a long list of wonderful memories with me personally, but and you want to brag about and talk about, but let's just limit it to a couple. But any good fun Pruitt memories, not to be about me or you, of course, but just having to obviously be the leader of our pharmacy division back during during that interesting time of a lot of growth and technology and everything that we've had.
Yeah, Tom, it was, again, Pruitt had, we had, when I got there, we had a really good team, and I think we made it even a better team as time went on. I will remember I took a ride up. I went to the Carolinas. Tom was over all the Carolinas, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. I don't remember if you had any Georgia or not, but so he was kind of my. He broke me in with Pruitt. So I flew up to North Carolina, and we took a drive. We visited the pharmacy in North Carolina, drove down to the pharmacies in South Carolina, and he drove me around, and he told me, he kind of laid the landscape out, and he was 100% accurate. I came, from Golden Living, but my pharmacy background had been Omnicare, and at least the last one that I'd been with. And, Omnicare is a great company, a lot of great people. I have Tim Bean, some of those guys are great mentors of mine. But they ran pretty full speed all the time. And at Pruitt, when I got there, Tom kind of told me, he said, you're going to probably want to back off on the accelerator a little bit. We have things that we want to get done, but this company doesn't do them at the same pace that some companies that we've both worked for in the past might do them. And he gave me some great advice, and we developed into not always 100% agreement. I think Tom will say that as well, but we came up with a pretty darn good friendship over the years and a healthy respect for, Tom, the things that Tom knew how to do and were really good at. He was better than anybody I had, So, and I knew that, and I recognized that, and Tom would tell me that. So,
I figured he would.
I was waiting.
I figured he would.
It was certainly a lot of fun, and I think what's most importantly is, we was able to reset with Bob. His predecessor had multiple responsibilities, and Bob's focus was the pharmacy division. And boy, I tell you, I can't remember the stats or whatever, but I'd say we almost doubled in size during your leadership period there. And it was fast for Pruitt, maybe not fast for a big national company, but one thing that I'm very proud of is that we were able to kind of bring that nursing home mentality directly to homes that we didn't own.
Yeah.
So we would take the resources and the information that we learned from our own company and apply those and help small independent nursing homes thrive and survive in a very competitive market.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Tom, you're saying that about working for a nursing home company is funny, because when I left at the time Omnicare, I was regional clinical director for Omnicare, and I left them and went to work with Beverly, then Golden, and then later on with Pruitt. It's funny how when you're in pharmacy and long-term care pharmacy, you really believe you know everything about what the patient needs and what the facility needs, and here's how they should do it. And then when you get to work for a company whose primary business is the skilled nursing business, not pharmacy, you learn there's a lot of different competing priorities out there, and you're not the biggest one. So you really have to learn what really is best for the patient. And there are times when that means, I'm going to do things, we're going to deliver things, we're going to provide things, we're going to not get paid for things. Those are things that are going to happen, that as a pharmacy provider, it doesn't look good on your books.
Yeah.
But as a patient care provider, that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
That's the business we're in.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the business we're in.
Yeah.
And so, You know, you always had to remember that. You always had to look around, and generally there would be somebody reminding you of that. So.
Absolutely. Well, Bob, I mean, this has been a thrill for me personally. I know Tom mentioned you're a mentor. You're a mentor to a lot of people in long-term care, and it's weird for me to say we're proud of you. ASCP is proud of you, but more than that, we thank you for what you've done for long-term care pharmacy and the ground that you've cleared so that other pharmacists and pharmacies can make a go of it in this space. So we appreciate that.
Well, thanks, Chad. The one request I'll have to you guys, and all of ASCAP and all the folks is, you know, I'm getting close to the point where I'm going to be one of those patients. So I'm counting on you guys to continue to do these things so that, you know, old guys like me get taken care of. You know, we're going to need those services.
Absolutely.
He's one of the most active people I know. He's always sending pictures of him climbing, you know, the backside of mountains and those type of things. So I think it'll be a long time. But to Chad's point, you know, your legacy certainly precedes you, and you did create a pillar that we can all stand on. So thank you for what you've done during your career, for me personally and for our industry.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Join us next time on Our Experience.